Hey everyone, Nina here from nb&ns and happy Thursday. Today we're going to be talking about how you can take better photos for your social media presence using only your phone. And we are so lucky that we have my friend Taylor here from Taylor K Photography. If you have been downloading our beautiful stock photos the past few months, she is the one behind those. Taylor has a wonderful background as not only a wonderful photographer, but she has a background as a marketing director as well. So she understands the concept of having wonderful content for your social media presence to help you promote your business. So Taylor has some great tips for us today. I'm not gonna hog it up. I'm gonna go ahead and let her take over. We will be taking questions at the end of today's live, so please feel free to ask questions. I have my laptop here to keep an eye on everything, so I'm gonna hand it off to Taylor.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I've been loving all of your training, so
thank you.
Keep up the good work. As Nina said, I have a background in marketing and photography, and something that I love doing is working with small business owners to create great content for their social media. I know that it can be intimidating to try to come up with compelling content all the time. So I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks to hopefully make that process a little easier and to give you a little bit of cushion with creating content that you can save for those days when you're just not feeling inspired. So let's get right into it. My first tip is to use your grid on your camera. Everybody talks about the rule of thirds in photography, and the grid can be a really good way to make sure that you're following that.
Yeah, and make sure you explain what the rule of thirds is a little bit, because me as a not photographer, it's very confusing to understand, one, what that is, and two, some of the things that you should be looking for to make sure that you're doing it.
So the rule of thirds is a general design rule that can also be applied to photography. So graphics, they even use it in video and television. And the theory is that you want to imagine on your screen that there are two lines running vertically and two lines running horizontally. So your photo is divided into thirds going both ways.
It's like a big hashtag.
Like a big hashtag. And you want the subject of your photo, or where you want people's eye to be drawn, to be at those intersecting lines. So
Okay.
you'll come up with 4 points on the photo where those grid lines intersect. That's where you want the subject.
And most phones have that ability, right?
Yes.
To kind of put that on your phone so you can kind of guide you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So it's a good tool to have. Something else that, this may be something that everybody knows, but I'm always kind of surprised when people don't. You can just swipe left on your phone to immediately open your camera so that you don't have to punch in a passcode or use your fingerprint to open it up and then open it. You can just swipe left and take a picture right away.
Perfect.
Another trick that I have is to make sure that you're stabilizing. I have shaky hands, so when I'm taking a photo, sometimes that just makes it not as sharp and clear as it could be.
Okay.
So to do that, say I was taking a picture of you right now.
Okay.
Obviously you'd be a little farther away, but I could take my phone and put it on my shoulder.
Okay.
And then put my other hand on my other shoulder to create a solid foundation.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And if you're doing a tabletop photo, or if you have a surface in front of you, you can also put your forearms on just something to stabilize.
Okay. Are there any like inexpensive like portable tripods you could recommend, or even for like people using for Facebook Live or taking photos?
There are. I don't use any tripods, but I know that Gorilla brand has one that can kind of stick to anything, even like a rock or a boulder.
Okay.
It can kind of grip on to
cool.
whatever you want to take, wherever you want to take your picture from.
Okay.
So
Very cool.
Another tip for stabilization is to take the photo using your volume button instead of pushing on the screen.
Huh.
So
Such a good trick.
if you have both hands on your phone, you're going to be more stable anyway. And this motion of pushing on a button is much less likely to move your phone than hitting a screen.
Okay.
So that can help with sharp photos. Also, use a natural light source. try to get next to a window. Try to go outside and get into open shade, meaning under a big tree or on the side of a building that is shaded, so that you don't have to worry about any shadows on your subjects.
Okay.
If you're taking photos inside, turn off all of the artificial lights. You can go by a window, but if you still have overhead lights on, it's still going to cast some weird shadows, especially if you're doing an over-the-top photo. It'll cast a shadow of your phone in your hand. So
Okay.
turn off those artificial lights.
Cool.
Get natural.
Yes. Sunlight. It's our friend.
It is.
We're in front of a big window right now. We do have the help of a ring light, but having natural light kind of helps, not just having that harsh, like, unnatural light.
Yep. So now that's all I'm going to cover with the technical aspects. Now I'm going to move on to some more creative stuff. To create a nice surface to take photos on, you can invest in a poster board or a roll of packing paper from Staples. I like to buy craft paper. I think that it's just a really easy fix. Your kids can color on it too. I used to love that when I was little, to have my mom just roll out a big piece of butcher paper and I could go to town. So,
And things
multi-purpose.
like tablecloths and like anything with like texture or different color I've used blankets before.
I love kids' sheets too.
Yeah,
Kids
that's a good
always
one.
have fun patterns on their sheets. So you can either take a photo of your subject on those backgrounds, or you can just take a photo of that pattern so that you can use it later to put text over, either in
okay.
Instagram or Canva,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep it for your graphic design.
Okay. Very cool.
So my next tip would be to add a human touch. Say you have a flat lay of your product, or you're sharing a recipe, or you're just kind of sharing some day in the life photos. I would have one of your kids maybe reach their hand in, or have your husband take something from the table or take a bite of something, just to show a little more real life in the photo.
So I know I get a lot of questions about, we all know we need to be in front of the camera so people recognize us in our businesses, but when it comes to kids, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable putting their kids in their photography. Are there ways that you suggest working around that, or what's your opinion on that?
I would say I include pictures of the kids in my life all the time, but I always make sure to ask. So say your kid has a friend over and you take a really cute picture, I would always ask before you put it on social media. Better safe than sorry. If you don't want your kids' faces on social media, have them hold it at kind of waist level. Whatever you're trying to take a picture of. Or say you want to take a picture of them on a hot summer day by the pool. Just take a picture of their little feet kicking in the water, or their hands holding a popsicle.
Right.
You can zoom it.
Yeah, just be creative with the angles. Or sometimes I'll include pictures of my daughter, but I'll do the back of her head or the top of her head.
Yeah.
So they can't see her face all the time.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
All right, so next up is to create some boomerangs and time lapse. Especially if you're working with product, a time lapse is a really fun way to make people kind of pause on their feed to see what you're doing, because you have a beginning, middle, and end of your story. Say you're unpacking some product, or if you're making something with what you're selling.
So how often should you be using boomerang? I know it helps to have movement, but how often do you suggest using something like that?
Well, I heard you talk about the 80-20 rule with, I think it's promoting or selling 20% of the time.
80% helpful, 20% promoting.
I would also follow that rule for boomerangs
Okay.
and time lapse. People go a little crazy with them, and it can be really tiring on the eyes. It
Yeah.
can lead to fatigue
Okay.
on your eyes.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. My next tip for those of you who say, I never know what to take a picture of, is to take a walk with your family and just commit to a certain amount of photos that you want to take. So taking a walk with your daughter and saying, on this walk, I'm going to find 5 things that I can take photos of. And ask her, what do you see that's interesting on this walk? Can you find something for me that's yellow? And then you can actually multiply those 5 photos that you've committed to taking by taking each photo subject from 3 different angles. Try taking a photo from above. Try it from the side. see what it looks like if you move your phone a little bit to the right.
Mm-hmm. So. I love that of having, if you have your kids with you, because kids see things from such a different perspective. I know that my daughter notices things like underneath things and just in different ways, and you can ask them how they see it, and it's maybe a good idea to change your perspective a little bit and think differently about what you're photographing.
Yeah. Another fun exercise to do with your kids, and kind of a learning experience too for those of you who have kids who are learning their letters or the names of things or how to spell things, is to play the ABC game and commit to taking 26 photos in one day and make sure that your subjects start with a letter of the alphabet. So have your kid go find something that starts with an A. Mm-hmm. Take a picture of it.
That's such a good idea. I know a lot of moms work with their kids at home, and it's hard to get stuff done. Or like my daughter was home on Monday for the holidays, so that would have been a great game, and I'd be getting my work done.
Right. You can send them away for a couple minutes with a purpose. Right. Another kind of fun thing to do just to have a piece of content is to go find, to do a color story. So on a flat surface, put together 6 things that are orange in your house. It can create some fun content, and you can kind of match it to your product too.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I am not a visual person. Like, even when it comes to decorating my home, like, I stink at it. So kind of, if you don't have that ability, starting out with maybe just some colors and telling that color story, it makes it a little bit easier than trying to match different things and really trying to have that design eye that, you know, if you stick with one color, it makes it a lot easier and manageable.
Yeah, it does. So my next tip would be to sort of like the photo walk, commit to taking a certain amount of photos. So I don't have children myself, but I do watch my nieces every Wednesday, and I have one who is 8 months old and one who is 15 months old. So Wednesdays are insane for me. I'm chasing kids from 7 a.m. until usually 7 p.m. when they go to sleep. Mm-hmm. That's my day that I've told my sister and my cousin, I can help you out with your kids, and they take full advantage of that. So even though it's a crazy day, last Wednesday I said, okay, I'm going to see how many photos I can get this morning with 2 usually screaming babies who are crawling and toddling around. And I ended up with 36. If you just have it at the front of your mind, you will accomplish it.
Right. And it's really practice makes perfect. Like,
exactly.
The more often you take photos and then look at them, and you can kind of see, like, you know, that didn't work. I bet if I did it this way, this might work. And, you know, even looking at what other people are doing online and following, I know you have some tips at the end for people to follow, just kind of to see how they place things and take photos of things, but it's really that practice makes perfect.
And knowing that you're not going to like what you're putting out in the beginning.
Right.
There's a great quote from Ira Glass that we can link to in the comments here, that just talks about how at the beginning you're not going to like what you're putting out because you have good taste. And the only way through that is to just keep taking photos and sharing photos and getting feedback on the content that you're posting. Mm-hmm. And to sort of illustrate that, this morning I posted on my Instagram some really early Instagram photos that I took that are just painful for me to look at. But it shows that, you know, over the years, you keep improving and you keep refining those skills.
Right. Progress. And you can take a look at those. I did link to Taylor's Instagram account in the description of this live. So if you want to check out kind of where she's come, you can kind of check that out, even though it does make her cringe a little bit.
Yeah, that's all right. So my next tip to create some consistency for your content is to use the same surface. So if you have a great cutting board or a wrapping paper pattern that you love, if you're featuring an item for your business in that 20% of the selling content that you do, create some consistency with the same background and the same lighting conditions.
That's a really great tip, because in marketing, it's really about recognition. You know, that's why your personal brand is so important, and your tone and your voice, but also your imagery falls into that as well. So you want to have some consistency in how things look, especially when you're talking about your products, so that people say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that and I recognize that background.
Right. And another thing sort of along those lines to create some consistency is to also create some tidiness. Now, I feel like some people go overboard with this and make things look way too perfect. If I have to see another desk-styled photo on a beautiful piece of white marble with gold desk accessories and a perfectly written out planner, like, it's just not realistic.
Right. We're all going to start looking the same.
Yeah. So keep it real, but you can tidy up a little. And a lot of times that just means moving your camera from here to show your whole work surface up here a little bit to only show a small portion of it.
Right.
So you don't have to do a deep clean, but keep things a little tidy, not too messy. Learn from my early Instagram mistakes. You'll see in the photos.
And while she checks out her next point here, I do see some questions coming in. We are going to take some time at the end to answer questions. So, Christy, I see your question. We will get to it to the end. I promise. I have my laptop here so we can address those.
So my next point is you can kind of create your own little photo studio at home, and I'm actually going to ask you to make something for me. Okay. On my way over to Nina's this morning, I just stopped at CVS, and whoa, things got really bright when you walked away.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm all washed out. It's a common problem with this complexion. There we go.
I balance it.
It's true. So I stopped at CVS and just got some foam board. And what you're going to do is, this was poster board size. So you can just cut it into fourths, and it can be really messy. The edges are jagged. Don't worry about it. Just take the two straight edges, leave about a 1/2 inch in between them, and tape them together. You'll probably want to do it on a flat surface.
Okay.
Just because you are adding some distance between the two pieces. You're creating kind of a joint between the two pieces of poster board.
Okay.
And this is actually something that I learned from a photographer named Angela. Her company is called Angela and Ethel, and they are someone who I would highly recommend following for some inspiration. She has really cool work. She's actually the one who she and her husband create these photos and videos together. She did the Kindle stop motion commercials.
Oh,
Have
cool.
you seen? Do you remember those
Yeah.
where she like goes into a rabbit hat? And
Yeah. Okay.
She's really neat to follow on Instagram.
We'll link to that in the the comments.
Yeah. So once you have this together, you not only have a reflector to put on the opposite side of your natural light source, but you can also use it as a backdrop. So you can put your product right here, and it creates a really nice, even light.
We conveniently have a My Little Pony.
Oh,
on the floor.
perfect. Look, I wonder which one that is. I bet, is that
It's
Pinkie
Pinkie
Pie?
Pie.
Oh, my niece would be so proud of me right now.
Awesome. So I think those are some great tips. I think Taylor has some follows that she recommends to get some inspiration for your photography. But also everything that we talked about today, we did link to in the description of this live. So we have a link to a blog post. I think we're going to do some Insta stories later to show some setups. So make sure that you follow us both on Instagram. We're also going to take some questions. So if you have a question, please put it in the comments. I'm going to check my laptop while Taylor recommends some people for you to follow, and we'll take your questions.
All right, so here's my follow list. Actually, before we do the follow list, I want to talk about editing.
Oh, yes.
I recommend editing outside of Instagram just because you'll have more control over what you can do. I use an app called Color Story. They have a lot of free resources that you can use. I get by just using the free filters and tools, but there are some paid components as well, which brings me to another point about creating consistency in your photos. Use the same filters over and over, whether you're promoting your product or doing some personal photos. I would choose one for color and one for black and white, so that when someone sees your photo, they know that that belongs to you without even having to look at the handle.
Awesome.
So someone who I would follow for some really fun, colorful content is Oh Joy. She has a great blog, Joy Cho. She has some really fun lines at Target, at Land of Nod. She's a great source of inspiration for me. she's actually the one who told me about Color Story, which is
Cool.
what made me think of that. Another super colorful, fun person to follow on Instagram is Pope Joys. She is a stylist and art director, and she posts such fun, colorful content.
Cool.
Her Instagram stories are unbelievable. So check her out. Someone who's a little more neutral in terms of color is Angry Baker. She creates some beautiful cityscapes. She lives on the East Coast, and lately it's just been snowy heaven. I've been wanting to go find the snowpocalypse because of her. A couple of people who have a smaller following than the people who I just listed, who just do a really good job of showing their personal life and their product. The first person is the Willow Field. She is an apothecary company. She makes products with essential oils. She has really beautiful branding and does a really good job of mixing in her personal with her business.
And if you guys are missing this, we will put them in the comments when we're done.
Definitely. Another person who does a great job of that is Epic Danger. I like following him because I get pieces of his personal story, his family story, and his business. And then just some visual inspiration for you off of Instagram. I kind of hesitate to say this because I kind of feel like I'm ruined on movies and TV shows now because I'm always looking at the shot setup and the composition and the color and how they're using movement. But shows like The Crown and movies like Manchester by the Sea or anything by Wes Anderson, just pay attention to how they're setting things up, how they're directing your eye with different lines, with motion. They do things so beautifully. I love the way they use natural light. I'm sure that they have a ton of artificial light as well, but so those are some things that I would suggest.
Yeah, it's really taking inspiration from others, and I think once you start having these points that Taylor gave to start looking at, you'll start seeing things everywhere that will really help you. So I do have some questions coming in. I'm going to try to get to them. Facebook does not always cooperate. So if I don't get to it, go ahead and put it again. I might have missed it, but I did see that Christy had a question about taking photos of furniture. And if you had any suggestions about how to maybe compose taking photos of furniture to post online.
Furniture, so if you are still on, can you expand on that a little bit? Do you have a consignment store or are you selling home accessories? I would make sure that you have a wide open space. I would make sure that your piece of furniture is against a solid wall with natural light coming at it instead of trying to backlight with natural light. And I would also say accessorize so that your photo is more compelling. Zoom way in and way out. Zoom in on a coffee cup sitting on a tray or a book on a couch, and then create photos that tell a larger story, the piece of furniture in the room and how it relates to everything.
She's saying like farmhouse furniture. Christy, do you sell it in a store, like a consignment store? Do you make it or paint it? Should you take above? She's asking. I think different angles would be good, so people can see, maybe see the grain, but then take one wide so they can see the outside of it, or like Taylor said, accessorizing it so people can see how they would use it or style it.
For tabletop, for farmhouse like kitchen tables, I would definitely take photos from above. Not necessarily to show off the furniture itself, but to show all of the different uses. I love farmhouse tables. They can be a craft station, a place where your family gathers. It can be formal. It can be crayons all over the place from your kids. With things like couches and chairs, I wouldn't take from above, but I would get down on the ground.
Yeah,
and
different
take
angles.
photos. Yeah.
Angela has two questions. Her first one is that she has issues getting true colors or black, navies, and reds.
Those are really tricky colors.
They are. Black's really hard, especially.
And I would say the more natural light, the better. And sometimes to show off the true color of something, you have to create a background that is a very similar color. Okay. So if you're photographing something black, try photographing it maybe in front of a chalkboard.
Okay.
And create some chalk dust on the chalkboard by drawing all over it and then erasing, so that it adds a little bit of contrast, but so that you can see that true color of black.
Okay.
Navy is the most difficult color to deal with, both in graphic design and photographing, and it's a color that I love, which is really sad.
Yeah.
I'm wearing navy right now. I love incorporating it into logos, but it's just hard to see.
It is. Angela's other question was about taking photos of clothing.
I would put them on people as much as possible. And I also like seeing pictures of clothing folded and put away. Putting it, if you have something that's a really fun pattern, I would put it beside a bunch of white or neutral tones.
Oh, that's a good
so
idea.
that it would pop.
Yeah.
And I also like seeing stacks of clothing. I'm just going to make a guess that you're with LuLaRoe, and I think that those stacked photos are super fun.
Okay. Courtney is asking the best background for headshot type photos.
I would say a soft gray or a blush color are the best for reflecting light. I'm really into gray as a neutral anyway. I really like the color dolphin gray. I don't remember if it's from Sherwin-Williams or Behr. We'll link to that. And Sue Bryce, the photographer, has some great tutorials on making backdrops.
Okay.
So we can link to that as well.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, but if you still have questions, put them in the comments. We will both come back and answer them. If you are watching this on a replay, I do always come back and answer questions as well. And I know where to find Taylor, so I can make sure she can come back and answers all of your questions as well. So like I said, you can check out the links in the description of this live. There is a link to a blog post that has some of the information that Taylor shared today. There's a link to both of our Instagram accounts, so you can check out some of the things that we do. We're gonna do some Instagram stories later today that will illustrate some of the tips that we talked about. So make sure you hop on over to Instagram and give us a follow there. And then also we have our February content package ready for you. It has some beautiful pictures that Taylor took that can help you with marketing your business in February. It also has our content guide that will give you ideas for content for your social media and online presence that you can get there. We are also doing our content live planning next week, so make sure you RSVP for that event. We will plan an entire month of content in less than an hour. It's our most popular event every week, so I would love to have you there. Thank you, Taylor, so much for coming and talking
welcome.
to
Thanks
everyone.
for having me.
Please follow her. She takes beautiful photos.
Oh, thank you.
And we have some fun projects coming up together. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of photo and how to create great photos and things that we can do to help you with your presence online. So thank you again to everyone who came today. Like I said, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to ask any questions. We do always come back and check those. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much.